To begin with, I have this beautiful image which will act as our fav icon, and you know what else is beautiful? The simplicity of our HTML. And I'm gonna start the boiler template, and the document will be name verification app noise. And then the first thing that I'm gonna make is a form which will be classed as form, and there will be no action, so I might as well delete that. And inside here there will be a p tag, paragraph tag, which will act as our heading, and I'm gonna name it reCAPTCHA. And down here I'm gonna make an h2, which will be our code display. So basically the random code that will be generated in our app, which has to be verified by the user and which is made by the JavaScript, will be implemented here. But right now I'm gonna write any rubbish here, noise, and down here I'm gonna make an input by the class input noise, and I'm gonna assume its max length to be 6 because that's what I'll be setting at the code display noise. And then there will be two buttons. Okay, so the first button will be our btn1, which will work as the submit button. Basically it will submit the form when the user writes the verification code by looking up at the display. Alright, and then there will be another one which will be our refresh. For example, if the user doesn't like the automatically generated code that he has, he can refresh and have another one instead. And I have to define their types, so it will be submit, and this one will be a simple button. Nice. And now it's time to add our beautiful fav icon, and to do that I'm gonna write link. The Forge CSS is what I click on, and then the href will be programming.png. Really nice. Now let's jump straight to our CSS. And you know the drill for that. What we have to do is click on this fancy icon and make our very own style.css. And after that, the first thing that you have to do, keep in mind, you have to link the CSS to our HTML, unless it won't work. If you guys are not new to this channel, then you might know that I abhor sitting here and writing CSS line by line and expect you guys to see this video and like it, because you guys earned. And we are not here to learn CSS, we are here to learn some concepts of JavaScript. So we have to get over the CSS part real promptly. So what I've done for that is I have some pre-written code which I will copy paste here. There we have it, our simple CSS done. And now it's time to jump straight into the main stuff, which is our JavaScript. So script.js will be made here, and listen, we have to link it too. Otherwise, none of it will work and our hardware will go in vain. So script.js I will write, and there we have it. Our script is linked to the HTML. Now let's store the element form inside a constant because we have some work to do with it. So constant form equals to document, which means our HTML dot query selector, which is a built-in method helping us to find any element from our HTML on the basis of its element tag name, classes, or ID. So I'm gonna pass the form. What it will do is search up in the HTML to see is there any tag by the name of form. Yes, there is one, so let's select it and save it inside this form constant. And down here I'm gonna set up an event listener to the form. So form.add event listener so that it keeps a key eye on the form. And I'm gonna write to the event listener that if someone submits our form, then you have to run a function which will be handle submit. Okay, but there's a slight problem that we don't have any function by the name of handle submit, so it will give an error. To fix that, I have to make a function by the name of handle submit. So function handle submit, and then our parentheses and braces which define the body of our function, and I'm gonna alert and write the form is submitted. Nice. Now let's check it out if the code up until now is working or not. We're now in the project, and if I click on submit, it will say the form is submitted. Nice. But there's another problem. Every time I click on submit and OK, the page is refreshed. and I don't want that because every time the page is refreshed, the data that we send through here gets missing. So we have to prevent the default behavior of our form, and doing that is easier said than done. What we have to do is pass an event argument here because it tracks all the event and all the stuff happening to the function, and down here what I will do is tell that the event should prevent its default behavior, which is refreshing the page. So now our form will not refresh the page every time I submit it. Now I will go up here and save the element input inside a constant because we also have some work to do with it. So document query selector, and then I'm gonna pass input because we only have one input, so it will target the one and only input and save it inside this constant. Nice. And down here what I have to do is whenever the user submits the form, we have to retrieve the data that is inside the input. So constant input value will be equals to the input element and then its value. Really nice. Now instead of this I will alert input value. Now let's check it out. Hey, in the project, if I write something here and then click on submit, there we have it. The value that I have written is alerted. Nice. But there's another problem, which is that whenever I click on submit, the previous data isn't erasing. And the other one is that if there is no data and the user clicks on submit, the nothingness is still alerted. So we don't want that. We have to tell the user that you have to insert some value to see any result. And to fix these issues, I have to write an if statement. So if input value, if it is equals to empty, then what you have to do is alert to the user that you need to write something. You need to write something. Okay, so an extra e is here. I'm going to remove that. And else, if there is some data inside, then what you have to do is alert the value of that something. So here we have it. And down here, after having all the stuff done with our submission, we have to empty the value of our input. So input dot value, and tell the JavaScript to empty the value of our input. Nice. Now let's check it out. Now let's check things up. If I click on submit without writing anything, you can see that you need to write something is popping up. And if I write something out here and click on submit, it will say object HTML input element. I guess we have alerted the input right away instead of the input value. So it's okay. But what we want to see is after clicking on OK if the value of our input is emptying or not. So if I click on OK, there we have it. The value of our input is emptying up. So we are getting somewhere, and now it's time for the next step. And now we have to create a function which will generate a random character that we have to paste inside our card so that the user can see it and then start their verification process. But before doing anything, I first need to change it to input val, noise, and now I have to call a function that runs whenever our page reloads or refreshes, or whenever the user visits the page, because the random character should be generated when the user enters our website or wherever the user refreshes the page. So it will be named random character generator. Nice. And I have just called it, and now we have to define it. So function random character generator parentheses and then braces, and here I have to write our further code. I will just come up here and then paste this character constant, which will contain all the characters that will be randomly picked to be a part of our characters set, which the user has to type down in order to further verify. Okay, and I will just also make this random character variable which will be globally accessible throughout our code. To see the working of our JavaScript, I have set things up like this, alright? And to attain our functionality of generating a random set of characters, we will use this infamous method of math.random. So first I'm gonna console.log its value, basically math.random, and see what it gets. So basically it is giving us a random value between 0 and 1. But you know, the value between 0 and 1 is pretty small. So I have to increase it by multiplying it with a random value. And right now, I feel like using 10. So we are gonna get any data between 0 and 10. And you know what? I don't want these all decimals value. I only want the whole number. So in order to round off the decimal value, what I have to do is copy this whole. Okay, let me first select it. And then I'm gonna cut it and then I'm gonna use math.floor in order to round off it. And math.floor basically doesn't round off the way that you normally do in school. It basically always selects the smaller number. And you may ask, why am I doing it? Well, I will tell you it in a bit. Alright, but right now we can see that we're attaining a whole number whenever we refresh, and it's a nice thing. And you may also be asking me, why am I generating random number instead of random characters? So basically, it's the way for us to generate random characters. How? Let me explain. But right now, I'm gonna replace the 10 with character.length so that whatever the number that is generated lies within the indexes of the characters of our characters constant. Okay? Now, the value that I'm getting will act as the indexes for these characters. How? Let me explain. But first, I'm going to copy this whole number up here and then save it inside a constant will be random number. Alright, so the random number that is generated between 0 and whatever the index, maximum index of this character constant is, and it is stored inside here. And right now, what I have to do is write characters. Okay, this is where the magic is. Watch closely. Characters dot character at Jared. So basically, it's a method which is used to attain a specific character from a constant by passing its index. And the index right now will be our random number that we have just generated by writing so much code. And now we can see that we're getting a random character whenever we refresh. Isn't that so cool? Right now it's free, and whenever I refresh it, it's Q, and when I refresh again, it's J. So basically we're getting somewhere. But now the problem is that we want 6 of them, not one, and they should be combined like this one here. But before doing anything of that, we first have to understand the concept between math.floor. Why did we choose it? So basically I have done the courtesy of console.logging the value of the length of our characters constant. So basically it is giving us 62, alright? And if I hadn't used math.floor, then there was a high chance that 62 itself would be the part of a random number that is generated. Okay, and right here in the characters constant, the index start from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then at 0, the last number, the index will be 61. So 0 to 61, not 62. And if it had generated 62, and if I had passed it right here inside the character char add, it will give us an error that there is no character with that index. So we have used math.floor in order to get a number anything less than 62. And now it's time to generate 6 characters at the same time, and for doing that we have to use loop and for loop in specific. So for I equals to 1, and then the second parameter will be I is less than equal to 6. So I want it to run 6 times, that's why I use this. And then I'm gonna increment every time the loop repeats itself, and then the body of the loop. So basically in the body of our loop there will be this whole stuff that's going around, and instead of console.logging this thing right here, I'm gonna basically assign the value up here but with a plus equal to y, because I don't want the new characters that are generated here to replace the previous character that are stored here. So I want to increment every time the loop repeats. For example, in the first loop it created A, so A is stored here. But in the second loop, if it generated C, so I don't want the C to replace the A here. I want the C to be added to the A, so it will be AC. That's why I use plus minus here, so that the previous value will be added to the new value, and then it will generate as a whole. And down here, I'm gonna console.log here to see whatever the hell that we have wrote up until now, is it working or not. And boom, we can see that 6 random characters are generated at the same time. Isn't that so cool? And now that we have learned how to generate the random characters, it's now time to assign them inside this h2, so that it is not only consoled here but also displayed up here. And to do that, what we have to do is save the value of the element called display inside a constant. And to do that, what I have to write is constant and then code display. Okay, display equals to document targeting our HTML dot query selector, selecting anything in our HTML, and I'm gonna say, boy, you have to look for this class, and whichever element has this class, you have to select it and then assign it to the code display constant. And down here, when the loop generates 6 random characters and then terminates, we have to assign the randomly generated character to the code display. And to do that, I'm gonna write code display dot text content. So whatever text content it has should be replaced with our random character. Nice. And we can see that a random value is pasted here, and if I refresh it, boom, and then again, it is working every time. Now that we're done with the generating and assigning of a random character, we have to put on the verification functionality, and to do that we have to go down in the handle submit function, and out here we can see that if the user has put on something meaningful, we are only lamely alerting it here. But if we don't want that, what we have to do is use an if statement to see if the input value that the user has written matches with our random character. Okay, random character, and if it does, meaning that the user has successfully typed whatever was there on the display, so we can come up here and alert something like success. Wow, so creative for me, right? And if the user failed to do so, which punks like me usually do, so I'm gonna alert failure. Alright, and now the main functionality is good to go. Now let's check it out. Okay, so this is our project up until now. If I refresh, a random character is generated, and if I click submit without writing anything, it says you need to write something. Alright, and if I write some crap value, it will say that you are a failure because it is just stating the truth. And if I write the correct value, which is taking me so much effort, I'm gonna click submit and success. Alright, and the success is missing one S. Now we have to work on the refresh button. So basically when I click on the refresh button, the random generated character out here should be replaced by another one. And doing that is as simple as eating peanut butter from behind. All we have to do is write a constant and then name it refresh btn, and then equals to document dot query selector. So on the document it will search on, and then the btn with the class btn2 will be selected and inserted inside the refresh btn constant. And down here in the event listener, what I have to do is that I have to write refresh btn. Basically I'm telling the event listener to, but listen to this refresh button. If someone clicks on it, what you have to do is you have to run the random char generator again. Okay, not the parentheses, as it is. Okay, now let's check it out. And now when I click on the refresh button, we can see that a random character is generated, but the previous one is still added. It is because we're not emptying the variable random character before assigning the new one. So let's do it right away. And up in the random character generator function we go, and then right here what we have to do is random character, which will be assigned empty. Okay, and now you can see whenever I click on this refresh button, boom, a new set of random characters are generated without them mixing with each other. And that was it about creating a verification app using JavaScript. I hope you learned a lot from this video, and if you guys like this video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. The source code of this project is provided in the description if you want to check it out. It was Quickside Service, now signing out.